I have a question. What if phones could read our minds? Imagine waking up one morning and reaching for your phone as you always do, but instead of swiping the screen or typing a password, the device unlocks instantly because it has already heard the thought in your head. At first, the convenience feels astonishing, even liberating. No more fumbling with passwords, no more searching through menus, because the phone knows what you want before you even act. You think of calling a friend, and the call is made. You imagine a song and it begins to play. You picture a destination, and navigation appears. Yet beneath the thrill lies a question that gnaws at the edges of this wonder. If the phone can read our minds, what else can it know? And what price do we pay when our most private thoughts are no longer our own? To grasp the impact of this world, picture how deeply phones already dominate daily life. Billions carry them as constant companions, guiding work, love, and leisure. These devices already anticipate our preferences through algorithms that track clicks and searches. But mind reading would shatter the last barrier, the wall between inner thought and outer action. Suddenly, the gap between imagination and execution disappears. Students would ace exams because answers would appear the moment they considered a question. Professionals would finish projects in record time because ideas would flow directly into documents without typing. Creativity would explode as sketches, stories, and melodies leapt from thought into digital form. The world would accelerate beyond recognition, humming with the power of unfiltered human thought turned into instant action. But such a leap brings shadows as well as light. Imagine standing in a crowded subway where every phone listens not only to commands, but to stray impulses, fears, and desires. A passing thought about someone could trigger suggestions or even unwanted messages. A fleeting memory could be recorded. Without permission, the line between intention and imagination blurs, leaving people anxious about every passing notion. Would a phone act on a thought of anger, a fantasy, or a secret? The very nature of privacy would collapse, because privacy exists only when thoughts remain unspoken. And in this world, even silence does not protect. Consider the workplace. An employee sits in a meeting and silently doubts a decision, and instantly, their phone registers dissent. A boss glances at a dashboard where every worker's hidden thoughts are logged and ranked. Recruitment shifts from interviews to direct scans of ambition, loyalty, or hesitation. Politics would transform into a spectacle of exposed minds where leaders could no longer hide strategy or deception because their phones betray them before their speeches do. Trust would evaporate as every whisper of the mind risks becoming data, and societies built on secrets, surprises, and strategies would feel stripped bare. The psychological toll would be immense. Human beings thrive on the space between thought and speech, on the ability to filter and refine ideas before sharing them. With mind-reading phones, that buffer vanishes. Children growing up in such a world may never learn restraint or reflection, because their devices reward immediacy, turning raw impulse into action. Friendships and marriages could fracture when hidden doubts or unkind thoughts surface through digital records. Even religion and philosophy, built on the sanctity of the inner self, would face a crisis. If every prayer, every doubt, every yearning is captured by a machine, where does the sacred private realm of the soul survive? Yet there is another side. Imagine the potential for empathy. If phones translate thoughts not just into commands but into emotions, perhaps misunderstandings decline. Couples might grasp one another's true feelings without clumsy words, and doctors could perceive a patient's pain directly without explanation. Artists might share visions unfiltered by skill, creating experiences of raw imagination that others can step inside. A new form of communication could emerge, more direct than language itself, as people connect thought to thought across networks of mind-linked devices. But even this gift carries danger. If emotions and ideas pass freely, then manipulation grows easier. Advertisers could detect insecurities before we even recognize them ourselves. Governments could suppress dissent before it takes form. Criminals could exploit fears or desires in real time, shaping behavior with terrifying precision. Wars might not be fought with weapons, but with invasions of consciousness, where armies of devices flood populations with despair or false hope by tuning into the very fabric of their thoughts. Imagine one day realizing that the thought you just had was not entirely your own, but a seed planted subtly by a system designed to steer your mind. The economic landscape would also convulse. Entire industries would vanish as typing, writing, and even speaking become obsolete. Why use keyboards or microphones when thoughts suffice? Jobs built on expression would shift to curation, as people struggle not to produce ideas, but to filter which of their endless thoughts deserve action. Education would no longer test memory, but mental discipline, training children to control wandering minds lest stray ideas trigger chaos. The most valuable skill would become mastery of thought, the ability to focus with precision while shielding irrelevant or destructive impulses from devices that cannot tell the difference. In such a world, discipline and mindfulness transform from virtues into survival skills. Meditation might become as essential as literacy once was, a way to guard the mind from exposure. Those who fail to master control may find themselves overwhelmed, their lives dictated by random whims translated into irreversible digital actions. And beyond the individual, society itself would evolve. Laws would need rewriting to determine whether a thought captured by a phone counts as evidence, intent, or crime. Philosophers would debate whether the essence of freedom lies in the right to keep thoughts unshared, and if so, whether humanity has abandoned freedom entirely. Some groups might reject the technology, creating communities where phones are banned, striving to preserve the ancient sanctuary of the unspoken mind. Others might embrace full transparency, seeing in it a utopian end to lies and deception. The planet would fracture into cultures defined not by language, but by how much of the mind they allow to be read. Now pause and picture decades into this reality. Children born into it no longer see the invasion as unnatural. For them, a thought that becomes action without effort feels normal. They might laugh at ancestors who feared losing privacy, just as we laugh at those who once feared photography would steal the soul. Yet somewhere, deep inside, a quiet unease persists. For if the mind is no longer private, then what remains? Truly ours. The final reflection strikes with weight. Humanity has always drawn a line between the inner world and the outer one, between imagination and reality, between what we think and what we do. Phones that read our minds would erase that line forever. The question is not whether such power would make life easier, but whether it would make life more human or less. If every thought is action, if every secret is exposed, if every dream belongs to a device, then the boundary that once defined individuality dissolves. And so the haunting thought remains, as intimate as the voice inside your head. If phones could read our minds, would we finally reach a new era of connection? Or would we discover too late that by giving away the privacy of thought, we surrendered the very essence of what it means to be human?